brightest lights, the biggest stage. It's Broadway in your backyard. Hello, I'm John Aronoff, and welcome to this hometown TV special here at the Paper Mill Playhouse, Ever After Edition.
I got into theater. I was bossy, and I used to boss my little sisters around. That's mostly it. And play, reenact movies, reenact The Little Mermaid, Annie, stories we'd read. And I'm under the impression I was quiet. Quiet up until second grade, and then my second grade teacher told me that there were auditions for The Lion and the Mouse. And once that happened, and I booked the mouse. It was all over from then.
My parents are a showbiz family. My mother was an actress, my dad's a writer. But I thought I should do something that's in the program. I said I thought I should just do something more sensible. I loved acting as a kid, and that's a whole other story. But I thought I should do something sensible, so I went to Cambridge University and read law to be a lawyer, and then just realized that this was the world I wanted to be in. And I first realized that when I was 5 years old. I used to love reading in class. When the teacher would ask people to read out loud, everyone would hide under the desk, and I was like, me. So when they did a production of Peter Rabbit, I thought I would be a shoo-in for Peter Rabbit, and I wasn't. I was third bluebird on the left, and my friend was Peter Rabbit, and I remember feeling this strange new emotion of jealousy at this friend of mine, and I remember at the time thinking, A, this is a strange feeling, and B, this is strange that I should be feeling it. It must mean something. And even at that young age, I thought, oh, this must be important to me. So from then on, I kind of tried to get all the big parts in all the plays, a little precocious 5-year-old. So that was the beginning of it. And, I've never regretted it. It's just been a wonderful life. It's a hard career, but if you're lucky enough to make a living at it, as I have, it's a fantastic life, around these wonderful creative people like we have here.
Growing up, I was always sort of a bit of a ham, I have to say, and I didn't know necessarily that acting was it for me, or musical theater, or any of it. But people would be like, "Oh, you should be an actor when you grow up." And I was like, I don't know. And by the time I hit high school, I started doing the musicals and the plays, and was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And so I applied to I'm from Sacramento, California, and I applied to the University of Southern California and got into a little acting program there. And for me, it was college when I was like, oh, this is a calling. This is what I'm meant to do. This is a trade that I can learn. This is a craft that I can build some sort of meaning in life for myself. And I was really fortunate to have some amazing teachers there.
Well, I grew up in a theatrical family. I'm the youngest of three, and I grew up with two older sisters who were both performing at a young age. So I think a lot of it had to do with family carpools. It was easier to drop all three kids off doing a show, and I really looked up to my sisters and saw that they loved doing theater, and I just wanted to be like them.
Oh, I came from a show business family in Australia. My family goes back 3 generations. My grandparents were comedians in vaudeville. My mother was a big musical comedy star in Australia. My dad was a dancer. And my aunt is Helen Reddy, who wrote I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. So, I came to America with Priscilla Queen of the Desert, the Australian musical. And I got a Tony nomination and my picture up in Sardi's, and I thought, I think I better stay.
Well, my father sang. He had a band and he plays a saxophone, and there was always a lot of music in our home. But I kind of got into theater. I did theater camps, and then there was a local dinner theater which Andy Carl also worked at in Maryland, Toby's, the Dinner Theater of Columbia, and I started there as an ice cream scooper, and then I bussed tables, and then I was a hostess. And then I got to do the shows. So for me, it wasn't so much there was a particular person I wanted to emulate. It was I was watching the artists around me, and I was so thrilled by what they were making. And all of that stuff is in the round. So That was so fun. Yeah.
The best advice I ever had was from a friend of mine when we were 17 years old, and he's not a particularly Yoda-like figure, but he said to me, we were trying to think of what we wanted to do with our lives, because he said, how do you know what you want to be until you've tried it? But he said, I'm going to find out who I want to be around. What tribe do I recognize as being my tribe? Are they people who wear suits to work and have a weekend house to go to and like fine wines? Or are they people who enjoy building things? I mean, what are the kind of people? And I thought that was fantastic advice. And it was then that I realized I really enjoyed being around writers, actors, directors, creative people in performing arts. So when time came to make that choice, I knew this was the right world. But it was an interesting idea and very inspiring to me to find the right people. Because who knows what the job is. But if you can identify where the people are, what they're doing, then that's going to be kind of the world you want to gravitate towards. So that was the most inspiring advice I've had. Otherwise, there have been countless actors that I've admired. David Warner, Alan Howard, Ian McKellen, growing up with people like that, Patrick Stewart, that I went to see in London at the RSC or the National. Each had a performance that inspired me. Yeah.
For me, one of my people that I've always sort of looked up to has been Hugh Jackman. He's just one of those dynamic people. I always say anybody who can go from Wolverine to Curly in Oklahoma is definitely someone I would love to be exactly like. Early in my career, people like Patrick Wilson. And I'll say I was lucky to find a great mentor in Raphael Sbarge in Los Angeles, who he plays Jiminy Cricket on Once Upon a Time in the TV show, and I think he saw a bit of himself in me. He was like, oh, this is where I was at, and all the great teachers in my life have sort of been able to push me towards, well, how do you do what you do? Who are you, and how do you authentically express yourself in the world around you? And so really the great teachers in my life have sort of helped push me into just finding me and having the courage to tell that story and that part of myself within the context of a play or a TV show or a movie.
Certainly my biggest influence, it's my two sisters, my two older sisters. And I think watching how they kind of found a way into the performing world has been, both of their approaches are so different, and I try to infuse both of them. My older sister Celia, she's a big Broadway actress, Tony nominee, and has really gone the commercial theater route, and I really look up to her and really respect the projects that she's chosen to work on. My other sister Maggie is in the kind of social theater, working with a nonprofit that she started that's really doing theater as a tool for social change. So it's two really opposite approaches, both that have been really rewarding, and it's great to look to both of their careers and try to choose a little from column A and column B.
Well, they didn't have to give me advice because it was the family business. Everybody we knew was in show business, and we were surrounded by show music. That was what got played, was Broadway cast albums. And growing up at school, I did school plays, and then I started work as soon as I was 17 in the industry. So it was surrounding me at every step of the way. And I was a writer. I used to write on soap operas in Australia. And I've directed shows, and so yeah, it's the family business. I know nothing else.
So the movie Ever After was a movie that we watched growing up, and my sisters and I, were mildly obsessed with it. So when I heard that there was going to be a musical adaptation, and that Marcy and Zena were on it, and that Kathleen was going to direct, that was incredibly exciting to me, and I was super excited to see. It's such kind of a quirky, funny movie, and although it has beautiful, sweeping fairy tale elements to it, there has a bit of a grittiness to it, and of course, the character of Danielle does. So I was really excited to see how that was going to come to life on the stage.
I saw the movie Ever After in theaters. I was totally a child of the 90s and really loved it. And it wasn't until I auditioned for this that I went back and got to watch it again and pick up some things that I had forgotten, but mostly they've given us a lot of freedom to kind of make these characters our own and not have to look to the movie for any of any of the creative choices?
One of my wife's favorite movies actually is Ever After. So when the audition came down the pipeline for this, my wife was like, "You have to do this show. You have to book this because I love that movie and you are going to be a prince, darn it." And it worked out okay. So here I am, and it's funny because my wife every once would be like, "Well, did they keep this from the movie, or did they do this, or how is this different?" And what's been great about this process is that the writers have managed to keep the essence of everything that my wife loves, that I love about the movie, and still managed to create its own unique little musical.
I love the scene with Leonardo da Vinci and Danielle where they're singing a song called "What Should I Tell Him?" It's just a really small, intimate moment, and it's moments like that I really love in theater, especially in a show as big and lavish as Ever After. To have these small kind of quiet moments I think are really beautiful as well.
I love Danielle's first number, Who Needs Love?
A knight in shining armor is just one more thing to dust, and I've got lots of dust that needs disposing of. Really, when you think about it, who needs love?
I think it's interesting because most musicals open with an I want song, and this is an I don't want song. She's saying, contrary to most Cinderellas, I'm not interested in meeting a guy. You know, the whole idea bores me. I'd rather stay home and read. And it's a really up song, and it's very funny. It's got really great lyrics, and it's a fantastic way to set the show off.
My favorite scene in Ever After. Well, I don't typically get to dance. I didn't know that it's a Kathleen Marshall show. I didn't know that I would be dancing, like ever, until they were like, "We're going to choreograph this number now." And I was like, "Oh, I'm in it. Oh, so I'm dancing unlike I've never danced before." And it was a huge challenge for me and incredibly exciting. And I'm also sword fighting, which I've never done. And I'm sword fighting with my opposite hand than my dominant hand. So that is I feel like those two moments for me are incredibly exciting and scary at the same time. And I love singing I Remember. It's a really beautiful song. And every night I kind of get lost in it.
Close my eyes and I remember. And here inside the quiet in this universe of words and the stories that we never got to share. Hope I never knew I needed. Love I thought that I had lost is everywhere.
Well, first of all, it's just a fabulous piece. I mean, the music is fantastic. It's a much-loved story. It's a great spin on the Cinderella story, but taking the magic pumpkins out and replacing it with just human endeavor and determination and love, and having that be the magic. Which I really liked, a rather more spunky Cinderella than a girl who simply relies on magic mice. So I love that part of it. And to be around these people. I mean, it's an amazing but creative bunch of people. Zena and Marcy and Kathleen and this extraordinary cast is just, it's a joy every day to come to work. I mean, I know it sounds a cliche, but it's true.
And if his kiss makes the whole world sing, maybe you should do it more.
What should I tell him?
Tell him there's a map sent from stars above. You could tell him you're the one he was born to love. And come what may.
I am the fairy godmother character, and it was true that Leonardo was brought to France in the year 1516 to teach the king about art and nature, and he arrived with 3 paintings under his arm, one of which was the Mona Lisa, which he refused to sell to the king in his lifetime, and he died in the king's arms in Paris 3 years later, and that's how the king got the Mona Lisa, and that's why it's in the Louvre and not back in Italy. So the writers of Ever After have cleverly used Leonardo, who is a Renaissance man heralding a new world, as the one who introduces the prince to Danielle and forces virtually a marriage between a commoner and a prince, because that's all part of opening up people's minds, putting people to, accepting matches that they wouldn't have seen before.
So, people are very familiar with the film and with Drew Barrymore's work of it. And for me, having also done Rocky, which was, a movie to a musical, and so going, okay, well, what kind of Adrian do I want this to be? Or what kind of Danielle do I want this character to be? And I really watched Ever After, for me, again, once before this, and not again. Because Drew Barrymore does a beautiful job. It's her piece, and she made the movie. It's her character that she created, and that's not the same girl that I am, because we are not one and the same. So honestly, I'm sure there would be a lot of differences between, what she has in the movie. There's also, it's a movie, so you can do so much more with close-ups and cutaway shots, and that just isn't the same thing here. So I would say there's a lot of Margo.
Maybe I can learn horse ride, practicing as days go by, knowing ever after love goes on.
No, their relationship, the relationship between Danielle and Prince Henry in the movie is such a great template, because it's one of those adversarial loves, in a sense, like Beatrice and Benedict from Much Ado About Nothing, or just those two, Moonlighting, or any of those great fiery romances, and so it's been fun bringing the wit and the quirk and the battle that is this love story.
My advice for somebody who's in the arts and wants to create, and whether if it be acting, if it be singing, if it be whatever, I just think it's so important to bring your authentic self, and I think that takes a very long time. It can take a long time to find, and can take a long time to trust that you're enough. And there's something really optimistic in this story, is that as it's not a typical Cinderella, we call it the real Cinderella story. But this girl is quirky, and she's funny, and she, is not polished, as I am not polished. And I just encourage people that, the way that you sound is enough, and your ideas are enough, and what you have to offer is enough. And you're never going to know what people want from you, so you're never really going to be able to please them. Walk into an audition room and know exactly what they want and deliver. You can only bring who and what you are, what you have to offer.
The advice that I would give somebody who was just starting out is just do what you do as well as you can do it, and always stay studying and always stay growing. That's why I love being an actor, is that I get to learn new things. I get to learn about 16th century France, and actually about people that existed. King Francis, Prince Henry, who went on to become a king of France. And so it's always like this little mini lesson in history or emotion. And so just keep studying, and it's a very hard road, so stay strong.
Moonshine, that's right. So my first sort of night on my own was a couple of very nice martinis there and a delicious duck I think I had. And I sort of had a little party of one, which sort of as my welcome to Milburn, which was very nice. I've been back there since. It's a nice place. And it's a great little town. And I sort of discovered this whole New Jersey station town culture, all these little towns along the railroad where it's an easy commute in and out. And I get it. I think that's it's a great way to live, to go into the city to work and then come back to some sanity, Although I love the city, but I'm not sure I could live there 24/7, 365. So I've really enjoyed it here. Yeah, it's a great place.
Rockin' Joe's, because they're so sweet, and they have those open-faced sandwiches there that look like this. I would say go to Rockin' Joe's.
I've only been to the diner.
I know this is totally cliche, but I'm heading there right after this interview, the Milburn Deli, to get the gobbler.
My go-to thus far has been the Milburn Deli, of course. I mean, you can't go wrong. You hop in, grab a little sandwich, enjoy the river, the brook. I don't know what it is, but it's gorgeous just to walk around anywhere downtown. In Milburn it reminds me of kind of where I grew up. I grew up in a pretty small town. Although I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and this is like a tiny little island of cuteness in the middle of a lot of stuff. So yeah.